every one of the 50 states.
Governor, what would you do if you were president or if you were in the Congress now on this issue over raising the debt ceiling? In about 3 weeks, the government will be at that $14.3 trillion mark where it legally cannot borrow any more money. It hasn't the means or the intention of paying that back. And yet the president's going to go to the leaders of the House and the Senate and say, let me borrow a few trillion more. What would Mike Huckabee do? Would he authorize that borrowing? Would he put ironclad strings on it? Not strings, chains? Or would he say, no, we got to stop the borrowing, we got to pay back the debt? The time to do that is now.
Well, I think that Speaker Boehner has got some real leverage here because in order to get the debt ceiling raised, he's got to get Congress to go along with it. And in order for that to happen, I think the Speaker, and he said he's going to do this, is going to ask and demand that there are some very specific, concrete, visible, transparent ways in which spending is going to be cut. If he doesn't get that, I think then he ought to follow President Obama's advice when he was a senator, Senator Obama, back in 2007, when he got up and talked about... Well, no, this is what is so amazing. Right. Obama has taken all sides of every position. In 2007, there's a senator, he said voting to expand the debt ceiling would be a complete failure of leadership. Now he's had this bright light hit him on the road to Damascus, and he's seeing it all differently now. Well, you can't have it both ways. So maybe the Speaker will just take Senator Obama's position on that rather than President Obama's position on that.
All right. Can I ask you on air if you're going to run for president?
You can ask me, certainly. You just did.
I don't hear an answer.
I'm going to give you the same answer I'm giving everybody because it's the truth. I'm going to make a decision sometime by this summer, and I'll let you know. I promise.
Governor Mike, you'll come down to my office and let me know?
I'll let you know.
You got it.
Promise.
Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Judge.
Liberals up in arms over President Obama's move to the center may need to brace themselves. His next move could alienate the left even more. That's coming up. If you're a wealthy American, raising your taxes can help pay for our spending problem.
The top 1% saw their income rise by an average of more than $250,000 each. That's who needs to pay less taxes? They want to give people like me a $200,000 tax cut. That's not right. And it's not going to happen as long as I'm president.
Now, we'll see about that. Joining me now is Minnesota Congresswoman Michele Bachmann. Congresswoman Bachmann, it's a pleasure. Welcome to the Glenn Beck program.
Well, good to see you, Judge.
What is the, likewise, what is the reaction of the members of the Congress in the Tea Party caucus to this lurch to the left by the same president who 4 months ago signed into law an extension of the Bush-era tax cuts and seemed happy when he did so?
Well, no one takes him seriously with what he's saying because it's just same old, same old. It's same song, second verse. The president is committed to class warfare. If you want to see this president irritated, angry, or sarcastic, watch what he says about people who he considers wealthy. That's people making $200,000 a year or more, or businesses. He has something against businesses. Maybe that's why we're not seeing private job creation. What you didn't hear out of President Obama is how we create more jobs in the private sector and how we create wealth. This is a good thing, but he's always attacking wealth creation.
Right. You know, I fully agree with you when you say no one can take him seriously, Congresswoman Bachmann, because back in December when he did sign into law the extension of the Bush-era tax rates, he almost sounded like Milton Friedman. He basically said in bad times the government should take less of your money so you have more of it to invest. The times are no better now than they were 4 months ago. Now he wants to take $1 trillion out of the economy, give it to government. Has he forgotten that private enterprise produces wealth? The government merely consumes wealth.
Well, that's exactly right. And President Obama, no president has ever come close to his level of deficits. In fact, President Obama's deficit this year will be 10 times that of George Bush in 2007. And George Bush was spending too much money. So if you take the first and second and now the third year with President Obama, his deficits in 3 years are $4.3 trillion. In his proposal today, Judge, he says he wants to cut back $4 trillion over 10 years. We'll just stop spending the money in the first place.
All right,
that's the answer.
What's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, Congresswoman Bachmann, when the president comes to the Congress and says, even though I've already borrowed $2 trillion, I got to borrow another trillion between now and October and $1.7 trillion the year after that. Will the House of Representatives, of which you are a prominent member, vote to raise the debt ceiling and let him borrow more money, or will they simply say, no, the time to draw the line in the sand, Mr. President, is now. No more borrowing?
Well, that's my position. The answer is no. I think it's quite likely, though, that the answer will be yes. And the problem with raising the debt ceiling, as you know all too well, Judge, is this. This gives the United States Congress the power to continue to borrow more money.
Right.
We're already, every dollar the federal government spends, 41 cents of that dollar is borrowed money. So this just gives us authority to make a bad situation even worse. What would happen if we don't raise the debt ceiling is this. It would take 6 or 7 months before we'd really start to feel a difference. And it isn't that money would stop coming in.
Right.
Money would continue to come in. We just have to prioritize. So we'd pay our debts first. That's important. And then from there, we just couldn't pay for everything. Hey, maybe that's not such a bad idea. Just prioritize our spending.
Why don't more Republicans think like you? Why aren't there more Republicans in the House of Representatives who will just say no to the borrowing? Now is the time to stop. We can't afford it. It's immoral to borrow money when we don't have the means or the intention to pay it back.
Because the political establishment wants to keep this engine going without skipping a beat. I don't feel that way. I'm not a part of the political class or the political establishment. We can't keep this machine going. We shouldn't want to keep this machine going. What we should want is to have an efficient, functioning machine so that we can have a strong economy. I'm more interested in private job creation in the economy than I am about a bigger and bigger machine here in Washington, D.C. called the federal government.
Before I let you go, Congressman Paul Ryan has made a very, very dramatic proposal to cut radically from the president's budget. Some people think he could cut more, but it's bigger than anyone ever expected. Do you support that, and do you think the House will vote in favor of it at the end of this week?
I think the House will vote in favor. I'll be voting in favor. This bill for 2012, our budget bill that we will vote on, we will pass on Friday, is exactly the right direction, which is cutting spending and not allowing tax increases. That's a good formula for private job creation.
Yes, it is. Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. See you again soon.
Thank you. Okay, bye, Judge.
Bye-bye. Why Congressman Paul Ryan's plan to slash our federal debt is leaving some on the right squirming. Next. Republican Paul Ryan's budget proposal for 2012 would cut about $6 trillion from federal spending over the next 10 years. The House is supposed to vote on it this Friday. Of course, the Democrats hate it. But now, according to reports, some Republican lawmakers aren't fans of it either and are avoiding saying how they plan to vote. Congressman Ryan's cuts are too big for many mainstream Republicans and too small for many libertarians. So will the House pass it? Who better to ask than a Democrat? Kirsten Powers, the New York Post columnist, Fox News analyst, and my friend. Kirsten, it's a pleasure. Welcome back to the Glenn Beck program.
Great to be here.
What's your take on what the House will do? I mean, the leadership is in favor of this. Even some libertarian-leaning members of Congress, like Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, who was just on right before you, is in favor of it, though I didn't know that until a few moments ago. Do you think that Congressman Ryan's plan passes the House, even though there are misgivings all across the board amongst Republicans?
Yeah, I do. I haven't really heard that much in terms of an expectation that it wouldn't pass. There certainly, I'm sure, are some Republicans who are a little leery of it because there are such draconian cuts in it, and they might be afraid of some sort of blowback from their constituents. But you have to remember the Republicans are really, this is really directed at their base, and I think that they're very afraid of what will happen if they don't deliver on the promises that they made.
All right, just as the president obviously had his eye on his base this afternoon when he talked about raising taxes on the rich, is this something done for the base? Because I'm talking about Congressman Ryan's proposals, because even if it passes the House, isn't it dead on arrival in the Senate?
Yeah, totally dead on arrival. I mean, it would never, ever go anywhere in the Senate, and of course the president would veto it. So it's so far removed, really, from what anybody else is talking about, whether it's President Obama or the Gang of Six or the Simpson Bulls. It's just so far away that it's just going to go nowhere.
All right. When you say the Gang of Six, this is 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans in the Senate who are attempting to craft legislation along the lines of what the President's Debt Commission, you referred to it by its common name, Simpson Bowles, after the co-chairs of the commission. Is there a chance then, Kirsten, that some other proposal could be before the Congress? We have the President's, we have Rand Paul's, which cuts a $500 billion a year. We have Congressman Ryan's. Is there going to be some sort of moderate compromise that will pop up and go to the House before it makes its way to the Senate?
Well, I mean, that certainly would be the hope. But if you listen to the Republicans, that they don't sound open to that at all. I mean, like I said, they have staked themselves so far out away from really anything that I consider reasonable. I mean, I know a lot of people are lauding this as very, Congressman Ryan's budget as being this very bold budget. I mean, it's bold in the sense that it's kind of out there, but it's not really going to ever go anywhere. And I think what the president was doing today was really just reiterating what our social compact is in this country. And it's not to essentially get rid of Medicare and Medicaid, which is what that budget would do. Did
the president reiterate that today, Kirsten, because he perceived that he had a problem on his left flank after some of the compromises with which he's gone along in the past 4 months, like in December when he signed the Bush-era tax rates into law yet again, and last week when he went along with the midnight agreement to prevent the government from closing down, something that really aggravated his friends on the left come Monday morning.
Yeah. Well, look, the left has been upset with him for a long time. I don't know how many times that story can be written, actually. Every time the left is upset with Obama, it's like, oh, okay. They're actually very happy about the speech that he gave today. And I think that, that I don't think that's only who he was trying to reach, however. What's interesting about Congressman Ryan's budget is that it's really the underlying ideas are quite unpopular with most Americans. Most Americans, believe it or not, never wanted the tax cuts for the rich extended even this last time, and they certainly don't want more tax cuts for the rich.
Is there still a divide amongst the Republicans in the House between the mainstream, what I like to call big government Republicans, and the small government libertarians, or will they come together on something, whether it's Congressman Ryan's proposal or something, so that they appear unified? Because if the Democrats pick off the libertarians, I don't think John Boehner has a majority.
Well, I mean, they seem pretty unified right now, and they seem fairly unified around this budget. And there are some theories out there among Democrats that the Republicans don't really want a budget to pass. That if there is a budget that passes, that'll be good for Obama, and especially if it's a good budget. And so it could just be that they're perfectly happy just to kind of gum up the gears. So that's an alternate theory.
Okay. Kirsten Powers, pleasure as always. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Up next, the truth about inflation the Fed is not likely to tell you.